are. I think children get that. And they will, in their vulnerability, say, oh, Mom, oh, Dad, it's so much better when you had your job. I want you to go do your job. Because that
should be a wake-up call for any adult. Yes. When somebody's in their life going, you know what, I like it better when I only have to see you an hour a day. That should make you pause. Say, uh-oh, something's broken in me.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just, it's very sober and my heart's hurting because I know some people are going to hear this and they're going to feel very judged. Welcome to our back porch. Pull up a seat and listen in to an unscripted, unedited conversation between two seminary-trained published authors who have been married 20 plus years and still love talking together. We are discussing meaty things here on the back porch. And it's been a little while since we've recorded. We've been traveling all over the eastern United States. Currently, we are actually literally sitting on the front porch in West Virginia at our friend Savvy's house, and we've invited her to join us for the discussion. Good afternoon, Savvy.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for coming to my house. All the way out here, it's very far out.
And you can hear the wind, I hope a little, and the wind chimes, and we're surrounded by all your animals.
Mm-hmm. You might hear goats screaming. Nobody's in pain. They sound human, but it's just a goat.
That's a good warning, actually. Don't worry, we're not neglecting the children.
I love looking out at your garden and all the animals, the turkeys over there, the goslings, which you've all named Ryan so appropriately, and the ducks, which we've been enjoying the duck eggs this week.
Chicks behind you.
Oh, and the chicks.
Don't forget the box turtle we found.
Yes, well, all the animals here on the Wolfson farm are very well cared for.
Oh, thank you.
They look so
That's my goal.
Happy and ready to be eaten. So well done.
Nothing tastes as good as happiness. That's what I say.
Not the box turtle. We let him go over at the river, and he has now a happy life.
That's right.
Well, we're having an unusual week. We haven't done a ton of Bible stories with the boys, but I was wondering if there was
We are at this gigantic cliffhanger waiting to find out what Hezekiah is going to do when the king of Assyria says, you better surrender. Oh, by the way, we're going to make it amazing for you.
It's cool.
And Hezekiah is ripping his clothes, and that's where we're at, the cliffhanger.
I thought you got past that with the boys, so you're letting them hang on that.
Honestly, I couldn't wait to read it to the boys. I had to go sit in the story myself, so I did.
And they were mad at you. They're like, Dad,
you didn't wait for us. I'm like, sorry guys, I just had to jump ahead.
I love that passage. I actually read ahead too, but the boys are still waiting. Are you going to pick that up before we go to South Africa?
I hope so.
I hope so too.
This week was our adventure week. Those of you listening don't realize that every 3 weeks we do adventure week for home education, so it's like been a week off for them, and it's been adventuring here on the farm, which is great. So the normal routine kind of gets thrown aside.
Yeah, we're out of routine too.
I noticed that you weren't doing home education while you're here, but your kids are busy with all their chores.
Yeah, we have chores. We usually do just math in the summer. But the cliffhanger, how do your kids respond to cliffhangers? Can you always wait until are they patient
I
with
gave
it?
them the chance to listen to the rest of it. They're like, let's just do it tomorrow. Well, it's been, 7 days.
When I
Sabbath and then
taught
Sunday.
Dianu about the death of Jesus. Dianu's my daughter, and she was 3 years old, and we went through the Jesus Storybook Bible. And she did not grow up in Sunday school, so this was all new to her at that time. I got to the death of Jesus, and then I was going to wait 3 days and share about the resurrection. She was out of control distraught. Like, literally thought the devil was taking over the world. And it was so sad. She was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, and I had to tell her right away, like, don't worry, God wins. It's okay. Oh, no. But
spoiler alert.
Very sincere. But
wow.
I don't know if I could do cliffhangers with my kids very much.
Not like that.
She's very
Not
invested in the story, though, and very sensitive and aware of that.
Yes.
We've done similar things of trying on Easter. Good Friday, we buried our oldest Finn's iPad in the snow and told him he had to let go of his iPad.
No.
And it was very hard for him, and I realized, I don't know if that was a good idea.
I know, but he was so like, okay, I'll do it.
He was trying.
And so we did. We had this little place, we buried it, but the goal was he he needed to get a new iPad that was dying.
Oh, you're gonna give him a new.
So we actually set it up to have a new iPad on Resurrection
Did
morning.
he last all 3 days?
He totally lasted, and he was so
trusted your
excited, and he
goodness.
said it was so worth it.
Yeah.
But I look back on it and be
I
like,
still
I wouldn't
feel
have done
like
that to you.
I don't think that
One of
was
those-
the best
One of
move.
the family experiments.
Well,
And
it's okay. He's turning out all right.
I think
Clearly,
so.
he's not overly
He's a
traumatized.
very forgiving boy, and we have money
he's
saved
an
up.
iPad collector
for-
now.
Who hoards them.
That's right. You never know when somebody's going to make you give one up.
It's so sad. And I've been saving money for from the proceeds of my art sales for his therapy work, so he'll be set.
Great. Yes, it's all good.
Speaking of my artwork, I've been having a great time out on the farm here because I've been finding new things to paint. And the light out here, the first couple nights we were staying, the storm cleared away and the storm clouds were all bright orange and pink, and I got this killer shot of Finn running with his laser tag gear across the field, and I just can't wait to paint some of these scenes.
I can't wait to see it. I've been waiting for you to get here and paint this place for a while now.
Oh, I'm glad.
It's like every picture I post on social media, you're like, I would like to paint. I'm like, come on down.
That sounds
Here
good.
I am. I've been taking a lot of pictures.
Well, what are we talking about today?
We want to talk about this big question. Well, actually, it's not a question. It's really a promise that people have been making to women, but to men too, that you can have it all. You can have everything you want as an adult. You can have the career, you can have the kids, you can have the good marriage, you can have...
The American Dream.
Yeah. Yeah, and we all have coming at it from different angles, so I think it would be interesting just to share maybe how did you approach your 20s married life, kids, when you were in your early 20s? How did you think of it, or how were you taught to think of it?
Right. And yes, and I think that this came about from a conversation we had just the other day that spontaneously jumped onto the kitchen table. So I thought it would be great for us to talk about it. And I know it all came down to this question of what is it? And so I do think it's helpful to talk through what are the messages of what we hear is it? What do we sometimes subconsciously digest and we're reaching for and don't even realize we have made that a goal, as well as maybe what is God calling us, individually, uniquely into. Because I think what we're looking for is a satisfied life, I'm guessing. And and we're not satisfied until these things happen.
Yes.
So
Well, one of the messages I have heard and what I had been asking you around the kitchen table was about, I think, starting with the boomers and then Gen X and millennials, they all believe in having children later in life and getting your career started and underway and then get married later and have children later. And for some reason, I don't know why, I get lots of fertility ads on Facebook. And I'm not
funny.
interested in it at all, but I'm done having children. But one of them blatantly said to me, you can get around your biology. Science can help you in your later life have a baby. And I was thinking, actually, it's really difficult to get around your biology. I don't think science has fully caught up to that, and I don't think it ever will. It is easier when you're 20 versus when you're 35 and up. And I think we are not always in tune with reality. I'm not necessarily encouraging people to go out and have babies as soon as possible if that's not what's right for you, but I don't think it necessarily works to wait until you're older. You have a lot less energy. So how do we balance the different messages we get with our biology and reality? Because we will be happier if we live in reality.
right, more satisfied.
Healthier.
I think as I recall, you even said the advertising was like, make your biology fit your schedule or something like that.
Gosh.
something-
Whereas like taking reality and making it fit into the fantasy that you've manufactured versus why don't we take what we manufacture and deconstruct that and maybe fit it better into reality, which is the historical Christian position and has been the position of every civilization since the dawn of time. It's only modern medicine that has created, what was it? Francis Bacon, I think that Lewis is referencing in Abolition of Man when he says, historically, the ancients and the wise asked, how do I conform my soul to reality? And it was through the practice of virtue and silence and the disciplines and wisdom and knowledge. It says, but modern man has asked the question, and starting with Francis Bacon, actually, several centuries ago, he started asking the question the opposite way. How do I make reality fit my desires and my will? And the answer to that is technology. So whatever I could do to manipulate reality to fix my will. And I think modern man doesn't even realize that he's been asking the question backwards. But that advertisement says it very succinctly. And the only reason an advertisement like that works is because everybody's already assumed it. The schedule is more important than the reality of biology and my body and the real world that is around me. It's a major conflict when you start asking what is it, when the it may already be a fantasy, like you're playing, Tinkerbell, rather
As in
than
you can have it all.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Everybody's thinking like, what is it? Well, it has to be this thing that I have to conform to my will. What if it is actually my will conforming to something else?
If it means learning to live in reality, then you can have it all. But if it means you can have all your desires fulfilled, then no, you really cannot. And I don't know any 40, 50-year-old woman who would say it's easier to have babies when you're 40 than when you're 20. I think that's a commonly understood truth.
I don't think they're looking for easy. I just think they're looking to have them. Like, oh, I put off so much time because I went after that career thing that I've been told is such the important thing. It gave me power. It gave me, let me fight against the patriarchy or whatever my, perceptions are of it. And made me feel like a contributor to the society that told me that this is the best way to contribute. Whatever all the different reasons are. So they're like, well, I obeyed that order, but now there's this other biological order that I seem to have been designed to do, and I want to jump into it. Now, that's even beside the point that so many have kids, almost like accessories, then they throw them into daycare and let somebody else raise them for the rest of their lives. That's not even including them. Just talking about just that sheer thing of like, there's something in me that I seem designed to do, but I haven't got to it yet.
And there's something weird in our culture where if you want to have your career starting at 25 and then have your children later, that is looked at as a positive thing. But if you want to have your children when your body is ready to have them and then start your career at 45, it's like, oh, you haven't got any foundation underneath you and you won't be accepted into the workplace as easily. It's really hard to apply to a place if you have no quote-unquote experience, but it's much easier to apply right out of college and work your way up.
Yeah, they expect you to be inexperienced. They expect to pay you less, and you have so much youthful energy. That's why the military loves younger people, because they're easy to conform to whatever the wishes of the corporation or the giant machinery is. So that makes a lot of sense why. And I agree. At 50, I already feel age, even though I have all this stuff behind me. If you change careers even when you're 50, you feel like you're starting over. It's almost like you had a child with your previous career and now you're starting this new one, because people look to the energetic youthfulness in order to find guidance today.
And it fills in a lot of holes. Like, love covers a multitude of sins. Well, youth covers a multitude of errors. Like, okay, you did this whole thing wrong, so pull it all-nighter, fix it, because it's due tomorrow. Like, okay, if you can't ask like a 55-year-old.
They know better. They're like, I'm not doing that. You didn't pay me for that part.
Yes, they're more dialed into their rights and their limits. And I also think, for me, changing careers, I'd love to hear about you too in changing careers, because you've been through some major changes career-wise. When you had to learn all the skills to run for office, when I had to learn all the skills to start an art business, I could feel so much more resistance inside me. Like, okay, come on, gear up. You can learn this new program or new system. And I think this is why people say, go to college and learn all these skills from those experts when you're young, because your mind is very pliable and really susceptible. And for me, it wasn't until I got pregnant that I really felt the division between men and women. It was so loud. I remember being pregnant with Finn, so nauseous, like driving down the street, and I saw this sign that said men at work, and I was like, used to be all up. That used to bother me. Like, why does it say men at work? Women can work too. Women can work in construction. And I thought, nope, that's appropriate, because literally right now I could not work that job. I feel so horrible. And I felt left behind. I'd always had so much stamina, but being pregnant, I couldn't muster it.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I had hyperemesis with both pregnancies, so I was very sick. So when I say I'm done having children, it's kind of like I hope I'm done, because my body would not, accept it, really. I'd love more children. That was the plan, but... it wasn't going to work out with my health. So I totally hear you, because it's like your body, even I was younger than you. I was 22 with my first, and my body felt like it was betraying me entirely and not getting on board with what I needed to do every single day for the whole entire 9 months. And it gave me a ton of sympathy for people who go through long-term illness and don't know when the end is going to be in sight. Because I had an end date, the birthday of my baby, and I would probably be better after that. So it like completely depletes your body. But yeah, it is a huge division, and I could not have... Well, I actually did it while I was in college, but it would have been a lot less stressful, and I probably would have been healthier if I wasn't trying to do it all at the same time. My symptoms probably would have lessened if I was less stressed.
Mm-hmm.
That's really powerful observation. I remember trying to do it all, and to me it meant keep Solation running, traveling, speaking, writing our book, and getting on lots of airplanes. And I remember we ended up having the guy to do the sound design. He flew out to Steamboat, drove, got stuck on our road. Brad Hill, if you're listening, we still love you. Came up to our cabin, recorded us.
Okay, Brad, I also got stuck on the road once.
And also, Brad, I have also been stuck. So we are in the stuck club.
And it was in the middle of winter. It was like January 20th or something. And we were a month away from Finn being born. And I remember not slowing down. And I think the thing that was so hard is once Finn had arrived, he had huge sleeping problems. And later found out some major health problems that I look back now and think, if I hadn't been on 30 some odd airplanes with him before he was 1, how different the pacing of his life, my life, Dale's life could have been. And I completely get why women nest and stay home to be the main like they are feeding this child. And yeah, I know you can do formula, and I know you can do shared feedings. And we did that at the beginning a little bit. But I realize now, as I compare how Finn was raised and how Ollie was raised, I enjoyed being a mom so much more in the early stages with Ollie, because I could be present. And so I feel like I got it all with Ollie more than Finn, even though in the world's eyes, I got more of my career during Finn's years. And I feel a little bit of sadness that I baby wore Finn to so many things, and people, young women, saw me in college, and I think they thought, see, she's doing it all, and she's fine, and it ends up holding up this really a false reality, because something was giving at that time. It was Finn's comfort in some ways and our own health.
I just feel sad. It just makes me sad. It makes me sad that someone would look on the stage and say, "See, she's doing it all." Because it just seems odd to me why that would even be like. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to get on a stage? Maybe it's after having a long career being on a stage, realizing what in some ways a sham it is, because it's the people's opinion of you so ebb and flow. It's just so fickle, and the effect you think you're having may not be an effect at all. All that could be an illusion. But that you're raising a child who will be in your audience for the next 18 years. You want to be on that little stage or big stage and be fully present, because that audience is 100% plugged in. And that's a powerful moment.
Your perspective, though, has changed so much.
I was just going to say that.
And I love hearing you talk about this.
Yeah. No, I just think, obviously raising your children is the most important work, and nobody else is going to do it for you, and God gave it to you, and that's your job. And I don't want to alleviate from, the sadness, but I have benefited from your work, and my life has flourished because you helped me have the tools to have a foundational truth early on. I probably would have found it all eventually, but it would have been a lot more painful navigating, trying to figure it out by myself. So I don't think I'm the only one.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It's good to have Savvy here on this episode.
It's okay, there's a few random people.
Don't think that's true.
But
we don't know the effect.
When I look at
And
it
she's
from
not
this
random.
perspective, I think to myself, especially during these early years, childbearing and young, what would you call it? Early childhood development is the fancy word. I think a lot of men are like, look, let me go full bore on the thing that I'm good at to provide for this family and do my part of the team. And you go full bore what you're good at and design for and fulfill that part of the team. And we're meeting, and we are a team. And I think that there's often a wedge put in here. We're like, well, he's getting all this power and I'm just stuck at home. I know you both actually have the same team, because it goes back to something else that is an illusion, is that we think that marriage is just for, I don't know what people think, it's for somebody to share property with, somebody to have romantic feelings with. But marriage is for literally designed for children itself. So if you enter into that, the whole goal should be, we are a team, we are joining together forces in order to have children, and make sure those children become little, powerhouses in the world, as fully equipped as possible, not just in their education, but in their emotional health and their well-being, so they are prospering and they can stand on their own feet and be mighty men and women. So I think that is what you're coming together to do. So when it comes to sharing what everybody's good at in the marriage, during those years, the man wants to be leaned on more heavily for those things.
Yes.
Because he's like, if I am stuck at home, and for him it does feel like he's being stuck sometimes, feeding the baby so that we could share it, I think it often is depleting things that he's like, I need these kinds of powers and energies because I am working with much larger forces and people and relationships out there in the world, trying to forge a way to bring this money home and convert my labor into money.
Yes.
And
I do think men
there
feel
are
that
places
way.
where a woman is better at it. Like we have friends who, she's a pediatrician and he's a carpenter. And so it's like, well, she obviously can bring home much larger paychecks.
Right.
But, and I think there may be exceptions in these moments to consider, but widespread, by and large, you have to let everybody do what they're good at in those moments and fulfill their part of the team. Otherwise, you might be following a blueprint because you think the blueprint is more ideal. The blueprint meaning she can work and I can work, and she can feed and I can feed. You're like, why are you trying to do that? Co-parenting isn't always about sharing who's with the kids.
Equal time.
And I think that's a misnomer about it. For me, I wanted to co-parent because I wanted to make sure that I was as important to my kid as my wife was. And that he is receiving from me my best, just like he's receiving from my wife her best.
That's powerful. That's a really powerful statement. That co-parenting was about knowing that your kids knew both you and your wife.
So you come home from work,
Yeah.
of course you want to play with your kids because you want to bring the best that you still have in you. You're not like, oh, that's women's work, I don't want to do that. You raise them, I'll go see them on the weekends or some other weird thing. And you see that a lot. And that so everybody's got to kind of get their self-examine some of their own deeper selfish issues. Right now we're talking about it when people are decently healthy.
Yes.
And entering into this marriage agreement of kids.
Well, you're bringing up a really good point, is that I think couples need to feel the freedom to create their own culture in their family and to ask themselves, what am I better at? Yeah. And a lot of women have been raised with the blueprint model that the dad is the one who makes the money and the wife is the one who stays home with the kids. And if you were raised in a spiritually abusive atmosphere like Savvy and I were, where the wife may have had gifts that were never permitted to earn money, you can end up as a woman compensating the other direction and feeling like, no, childbearing and child rearing is not going to keep me back from actualizing some of my power.
Yeah.
And so I think we overcompensate, maybe. At least I know I did. I find that the ambitious side of me is pretty strong compared to you, Dale. And that's something, if I don't have a project or something that's other than you and the boys become
The project. And we don't like it. So, no, that's true.
No one likes it.
And if I even could speak into that for a moment and simply say, there are gifts that we're going to have, that can feel fulfilled in those gifts without having to convert it into money. And I think that is another overlooked thing, because if the goal is power for a woman, that she can't have it all unless she has the powerful component, again, I think a lot of these messages are coming from communist versions of feminism, where the woman has to be equal to the man in these kinds of ways. She needs to have power. And I am in full agreement that women should be allowed to own property and all those kinds of things. And I think were disservices to women back in the day when men were misbehaving and the women were left in the cold. Mm-hmm. You had to end up marrying your brother. I mean, how horrible is that? That's ancient Israel. That's not a very good situation to be in. But all that aside, but to have power for its own sake, to feel like you're not important without it, and to think that the power equals having the kind of money that the man has, having the kind of influence the man has in your life, I think that is not being true to your gifts. I think that's a desire for something else entirely. Because you could be, I like challenges, so I can jump into challenges in certain ways that have to do with investing, have to do with rising to the top in an organization, because I see the other people that I'm competing with and trying to get to that point where I get that higher salary and I'm in more leadership positions, all that. But that itch is also scratched sometimes when I'm gaming. Where it's like, if I in a day needed to be like, I need to feel a sense of this competition and this striving so I can achieve, money actually doesn't have to come with it at all.
That's an excellent point.
It could be something gardening, like my challenge is to get the fence up today. My challenge is to plant these rows today. My challenge is to see how many tomatoes I can bring. None of it's going to provide any money for me. And I think that we have misplaced gifting sometimes with gifting must mean power.
That's great
in order
distinction.
For that to count.
That's a great distinction.
Too, what you were describing with growing up with spiritual abuse and then wanting to do the opposite of how you were raised, that seeking validation. Whenever I have sought validation after being hurt, I realize I'm not fully healed yet, because I am still acting out of hurt. And I might be doing the opposite of what I might be, oh my gosh, this is freedom. This feels like I can finally do this thing. But I'm still not behaving as though I'd never been hurt in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you chose to run...
You want to talk about that?
I do. I feel like it's...
Are you allowed to talk about that, Paul?
Can you talk about it?
Allowed?
I can talk about whatever. I did not sign any disclosures.
I didn't mean allowed.
All the nitty-gritty.
You meant you feel comfortable talking about it. Well, let me ask my question, then she can decide if she wants to.
You go for it.
When you decided to run for office, did you feel like you were running because you wanted to grab a little bit of power that you hadn't had because you were child rearing, or did you run because there was something else going on in you?
So I didn't get into politics on a local level at all until COVID happened, and my husband was gone with the military at the time, and our county, where we all lived together at the time, shut down to the point that they even roped off playgrounds and told us we couldn't play on playgrounds, and they had to have 3-year-olds wearing masks, or it was going to be like I think it was a $3,000 fine or 6 months in jail. It was absurd.
It was in the news, national news, for being so...
I could not find anywhere that was worse than where we were. Even closing mountain bike trails. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I was standing alone one time outside, and the police approached me about not wearing a mask, and I was like, I am standing outside in the fresh air and
alone.
I'm super respectful of law enforcement, so I was like, what do I do here? And I literally just walked away. I didn't know what to do. So I started speaking out because my children were suffering. All of my support systems that I put into place before my husband left were taken away from us, and they were little, and I'm just, in the wintertime staring at the walls inside of our house with 2 little kids. It's not a very healthy place, and I'm like, I'm not the only one who's being badly affected. And nobody else was, at the time I announced, nobody else in my party was running for that seat, and the Democrat was just going to walk in unchallenged. And I really did want to make a difference in human flourishing in people's lives. So yes, I did want to actually accomplish something for my children. I never used their faces in any of our promotional material, even though everybody wanted to, show pictures of her cuddling her children or something like that. And it really was for them. I wasn't trying to exploit them.
Yeah.
But in the end, I'm actually happy I lost. because I get to spend so much time with them. And I cut my losses and moved here. Colorado is not going to be a good place to raise children, and I just had to face that reality.
Mm-hmm.
They will vote for the candidate who has a D next to their name every time, end of story. Like, no matter who it is or how knowledgeable they are or what they want to accomplish. So I wasn't going to be able to influence anything. People get, they can vote in their own judgment and enjoy their high gas prices and taxes and, all the things that they vote for. So,
when you look back over your kids flourishing, what do you think their takeaways will be from this time of watching you run and now watching you in West Virginia?
I think they're happier with me home. I know they are because I can see it. They're more relaxed. And I think if I ever was going to do something like that again, they'd have to be adults because it did take a toll on them. So
I have a whole file of things I've written that are titled to be published after the children are gone.
Yes. Yeah. But I think, too, like, the most important work is my children. For me, at this point, it is my children and my marriage and my home life. It's the reality that I want to most clue into, and career accomplishments are really nothing. I'm sorry. I know they are a lot to a lot of people, but you're replaceable at work, and you're not replaceable at home.
Huge.
So.
That's huge. And for your kids, they would define it in their stage in life as having you plugged in at home. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the it's that's overlooked, is what is it for the people that matter most to us, around us. Because us being involved is more important than white picket fences.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Though, if they have to choose between you being home and not being plugged in, and being away and not being plugged in and having the music lessons, they're going to choose the music lessons, because if you're incapable as a parent of seeing your children when you are at home with them and being so stir crazy and so feeling so inadequate that you're constantly either on your phone or unplugged from who they really are, I think children get that. And they will, in their vulnerability, say, "Oh, Mom, oh, Dad, it's so much better when you had your job. I want you to go do your job." Because that should be
a wake-up call for any adult. When somebody's in their life going, "You know what, I like it better when I only have to see you an hour a day." That should make you pause. Say, "Uh-oh, something's broken in me."
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm just, it's very sober and my heart's hurting because I know some people are going to hear this and they're going to feel very judged. And so I'm always like thinking about them, and I want to say to
I'm not thinking about anybody, just for the record.
Whenever we do these, I have people in my mind that immediately pop into my head. I'm like, they listen, they're going to hear this, and they're going to feel judged. And so what I want to say is there are a lot of people busting their tail to work really hard to provide what they think their children need. And what I want to invite those people to do is to give themselves the permission to face that harder, deeper question of, if you brought as much energy as your job pulls out of you into your children's lives, that could be another option on the table, and trying to make it work with less. I mean, being here with you, Savvy, is a wonderful picture of how you can make do with less and have a flourishing life. But you've made some pretty big financial sacrifices to do what you do, to be present, to not have the buying and the earning and the power that our society really admires. Buying power is a major way to get respect.
But I can honestly tell you, like, somebody offered our family a while back, before I had married him, $4 million for this farm. And if that offer was made today, I still would not even want it. I would literally just take that money, if I had that money, and try to find this exact life all over again. And that's when you know when you're in the right place. I genuinely love living off the land with my kids, and I think it's also healthy for them to do, you said they're doing lots of chores, fact. But I think it's good for them.
Oh, yeah, all the skill sets they're developing is fantastic.
You guys just power washed all the feeding buckets about an hour
and
ago.
August thinned the radishes, and Dainu mowed the lawn.
No, they
good.
work hard.
Looks
They don't
good.
need any PE. This is
No, but they do it anyway. They really do. They use our gym all the time. So,
That is awesome.
yes. I think it's because Dad's in the Army, so they just like to work out together.
He's inspiring them.
Yes.
Be all
I'm
you can be.
definitely not.
Go down and work out. I'm going to sit upstairs. Relax. Oh my gosh. Something you said reminded me of something, but I can't remember what it is, so.
oh shoot.
Well,
Keep
I
talking.
have
talking.
something I was thinking about when you were...
Yeah.
So something else I've noticed for cultural messages is that when a woman has a crisis pregnancy, or even a girl in high school or something like that, one of the messages that people give her is that her life will be destroyed if she has children too early. And I think it's so sad because a lot of the women who end up having their children, almost all of them, feel like that was the best thing that ever happened to them, and it pushed them to be more than they could have been otherwise. And obviously not all parents are good, and I'm not saying that's always the best, don't do high school pregnancy on purpose.
There's
people.
always
Don't
caveats,
listen
right.
to it.
That's right. That's right.
I want to grow now. I'm going to get pregnant
But
at
I heard
12.
a podcast.
So my closest friend had a baby in a teen pregnancy, and she doesn't regret it whatsoever, and I think it's made her a better person. Although I would say it was a bumpy ride for her daughter until her mom grew up, really.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think whether somebody aborts or not, just all the behaviors and activities that teens have that lead to pregnancies is already making their life harder. Because this is every time you engage in unhealthy activity, is bringing you down. What the Bible would call sin is you're really just kind of polluting your path ahead and making it more difficult with heartbreak and fake intimacy and all the stuff that comes with it.
I have a friend who talked about the first time she had sex with her boyfriend. We were in college at the time, so she was at least in her late teens. And I remember she said she threw up after they had sex.
oh,
And it breaks my heart because she was pressured into it by her lustful, very
Aggressive.
manipulative and aggressive boyfriend. And I know that she, through their sexual engagement, got pregnant and had an abortion. And I look at the body's natural reminders. This isn't good for you. It reminds you of the first time a man in war kills another man. A lot of times men just vomit because it's so atrocious. And what bothers me so much about premarital sex is not that it's like I'm a prude or I think sex is scary or gross, because I spent 10, 15 years of my life writing and speaking about sex. The reason it bothers me so much is it's destroying some of the beautiful innocence of these teenage years when there are so many important firsts to have that are age appropriate. And it's like exposing a 5-year-old to a horror movie. You see the jaded sadness in their eyes and they cannot go back to forgetting what they've seen. And I don't know how to share this with most of the world who equate sexual experimentation with freedom. But they're changing. They're trying to change reality to fit their desires, rather than realizing how much more exciting and interesting it can be to take all that energy and desire for sex and to steer it into something else they have the energy and the time and the focus to do in their teen years.
Yeah. So in other words, they're chasing an it that doesn't deliver.
Yes, again. And
Because I think for many teens in high school, there are ideas of what it means to be it. I mean, I have these conversations with my own son where he's like, are you weird if you don't have a girlfriend? It's like, that message is coming through somewhere.
it might be weird, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is happy.
Well, it depends on what weird means, right?
yeah, and it
But
means unusual.
He meant, should I have one? Is this something I should be
Oh, no. Yeah.
looking into and pursuing?
But he's learning that message from somebody
Yeah.
somewhere, and he's
Yeah, and he
he's a pretty
sees it.
sheltered kid, but he's still getting it.
Yep. And so the it is wrong.
Yeah.
The it is wrong.
I think a lot of like teenage girls are looking for love and validation, and you won't get it from a boyfriend who's pressuring you into, or not even just teenagers, let's be real. You won't get it from a boyfriend who's pressuring you into doing something that could make you a mother before you're ready. Like, the burden is so much higher for women and girls. Mm-hmm. And then for boys, who is giving them the warning that you're going to have to potentially co-parent with this girl in high school for the rest of your life? What is that going to look like? Or they might actually abort your child, which can be a very painful thing too.
Right.
Yeah, the cost either way, whether you terminate or you carry the child to term, is high. But the cost isn't high in the sense that it will ruin your life. The cost is high in the sense that you're going to have to grow up before, and so you won't have the rest of your teen years or your 20s or whatever.
I mean, I think about, well, now you say this, I think about, how dysfunctional our teens are. That the norm is dysfunctional. And to think that, why do I need to have all this validation from this aggressive boyfriend, for example, is because of the way I was parented. It left me open and vulnerable to needing validation from somewhere, especially in intimate ways. Not necessarily sexually intimate, it just gets associated that way. But that's because parents are pursuing an it that's causing damage to their own kids.
That's exactly right.
And this is like a snowball effect.
It is. It's a domino effect.
If you're hurting your kids, you have not found it. And that's a decent test, I think. My parents didn't find it, and that's why I'm living with the crap that I'm living with. And if I pursue the wrong it, my kids are going to suffer too. And then you have, the statements of Moses, when he says, the sins of the fathers visit unto the fourth and fifth generation. And why is that? Because everybody's pursuing the wrong thing. These kids are badly damaged. They're not pursuing God to get straightened out. They're pursuing another fantasy, and it just snowballs into destruction and eventually death.
Which says a lot about Finn, because he's not in that cycle right now.
Yeah, not in that cycle. And it could be that I don't let him talk to girls, so...
It's been really difficult because I have a daughter in middle school, so we've just had to keep them separated.
Yes, that's right. Separate cages. No, but that's true, and we're so open to talking to them about what are these feelings we have, what are the goals, what does dating really mean? When you see two 15-year-olds kissing on the street, is that a good demonstration of intimacy? Or are they after something else? Is this, how are they setting themselves up for their own future? And we get to have these conversations, and it's really fantastic.
It's actually introduced the most through movies.
Oh,
it's
sure.
very hard to
Definitely.
find movies.
Even
You're
in
right.
Cars, like you watch Cars, the movie with Lightning McQueen,
Mm-hmm.
and there's
Yes.
cars falling in love. And I remember
Yes.
just feeling like, this is so strange watching these inanimate objects fall in love. I
Yes.
can't get around it. Why does every kid's movie have to have this moment?
Right? We even see it like everyday shows, and we watch. I mean, even kids' movies, even adults, married people will even be kissing right there on the screen. You'd be like, that's too much intimacy.
Yeah.
I would not walk into your living room and watch you kiss. Why are you
True.
bringing your living room to me in the middle of this scene?
Yeah.
And Hollywood thinks those things have to be done to bring that wonderful crescendo moment when all the kids are like, is this normal?
Yeah, I wouldn't
everybody?
even kiss like that in front of my kids.
Yeah.
Even in a proper context.
We watched the MacGyver episode. Be like, oh, MacGyver, and all my only memories of MacGyver, the guy who could make a bomb out of a toothpick and stuff, And then we're like, let's watch a MacGyver episode. That was harmless. And then he's like, French kissing this lady. We're like, what is MacGyver doing? Like, sorry, kids, I totally
Forgot.
Yeah, I didn't even know. I didn't even remember.
Bad. And the acting was really,
so bad.
cheesy.
So that's
disappointing.
That's my bad. My bad. They're scarred now.
It's good to talk about that, though, because it's all around them. And not just male, female, 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 male, female, and males who think they're females. So there's a lot of confusion about what our desires are for. And so I want to kind of circle back around to it. And like when we hear it seems as if it means happiness. So happiness becomes like this big bucket, and the culture informs how you fill your happiness bucket. Like people,
Let's
I
put
guess,
things in the bucket. What do you think people think is
You have to have a career that makes you money and is meaningful. And you have to have a family, however you choose to define that term, with children. And so women look at that, and they know their prime childbearing years and their prime career building years are the exact same time. So men have it a little easier. They can okay, I will delay childbearing, but I can marry someone younger, and then I can, check both those boxes. But women do feel that pinch. And I think Savvy and I both are like, when our kids are grown, what are we going to do? We ask ourselves that question. So we have to do that hard work of fighting against, swimming upstream against the current. How do we define it? So I think I'd like to hear from everyone about what does it for you mean? You can have it all in a true sense. What is it that you can have? I don't even think it's happiness, because I'm not always happy.
Yeah, I think the historical view on virtue and happiness were, they were tied together, like not putting roadblocks in your way to make your life more difficult, as Dale was saying before, the biblical definition of sin. It, for me, right now, is being in the home. And then I thought of it after we had our discussion around the kitchen table. After my kids are grown, I do hope to also continue in this role in a way with grandkids. Wouldn't that be so awesome if I could? Because especially growing up with the family that I had, my kids don't have a strong relationship with my family of origin where I can, go call my mom and ask for help, right? I want to be that for them, continuing on and have it be a multi-generational healing. So that's it for me.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. So that when the end of your days, you'd look back and say, if I did that,
that'd be the most important
I
thing.
had it all.
And my marriage. My marriage is really important to me.
Yeah. In many ways, it's so simple. It revolves around these close relationships, maintaining and nourishing them.
Yeah, it's not confusing.
Everybody knows what's most important to them. They do. And then they don't act that way.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've wrestled with in having it is trying to bring some level of success from the work of my hands and it just not being there. Either because of I don't know how to get it out there, or there's just not a market for it or enough of one. And I think coming to terms with like what Paul says about contentment and what does it mean to be content. And he says, I know how to abound, I know how to be abased, I know how to have much, I know how to suffer need. I can do all things through Jesus who strengthens me. But right before he says all that, he says, I'm so glad that you got to participate with me in what I'm doing with God. But even if you had not participated, God would still be taking care of me. Period. That is why I could do everything that I do. And so, to me, it's a long process for me to not feel so dissatisfied without having an it. But I've had to redefine my it's as saying, I want to be faithful and know that God's taking care of it. And if the work of my hands, if there's anything I can leave behind, maybe the success of it, the fruit of it, is not in something I get to see at all. And it might even be something that won't even see fruit for 2 more generations, or 3 or 4. Or maybe it was just about holding that torch out and passing it on to as many people as I can that actually want to see it. And then they run with it. And then I just die and move on into obscurity. I'm totally okay with that. But I want to be okay in the middle of trying to grind it out every day, saying I need to keep forging, I need to keep making, I need to keep creating, is saying even if it doesn't bring the expectation, or even if what I get back is not proportionate to how much I put into it, I know that faithfulness to God means I could trust Him in it. And for me, that really comes down to my it. Look at the things that are around me. I'm using my gifts. I'm with my family. I'm cultivating healthy relationships with those closest to me. And if I can't be satisfied in that, I really feel like there's something wrong with me. So everything that's not satisfied in that, I'm constantly analyzing it and saying, I think you're reaching for something else. Your desire is misplaced.
I relate to that a lot too. That it's actually a very release. It's a big relief to me to say, oh no, you can't have it all. it's like, oh, okay, good. Because
You're allowed to dial it back. Like,
yeah, I don't need to do that. Like, I can give my art business this much, and if it's not accomplishable within those boundaries, it's not happening. That's a big relief to me. And same with homeschooling, same with our travel and our goals with the boat coming up here. I can have everything God gave me today to do. And if I'm listening closely, I can get everything God has for me done today. But I can't get God's to-do list and then add 20 more things from me on. So no, you can't have it all. You cannot, Jonalyn. You cannot. And that is good news for me. But it's very countercultural.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah.
It is very freedom.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, Back Porch is what Dale and I do together, but we also do things separately. Dale helps families access the Bible. He has a whole study through the book of Mark called Stories of Jesus for the Modern Family, which remain my favorite way to see Jesus. He story tells the chapter, and then he explains it in its context so that you can understand the Bible and reacquaint yourself with the Jesus perhaps that you never knew. I love painting and inviting people into joy with my paintings by changing what they see. So if you'd like to look at some of the work I've done, you can check that out. All the links are in the show notes. And if you're interested to take a class from us, one of the classes that actually Savvy went through, Spiritual Health and Foundation, those are available from Thinkific. And if you have a question or any feedback you want to share, please email us directly at hello@dalefincher.com. Catch you next time on the Back Porch.
And thank you, Savvy, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be asked. Also, I heard you talking in your room, in my guest room, and I thought, oh, they're listening to Back Porch. And then I realized it's your actual voice.
We were just talking. I love that.